For well over a decade, I've made videos on YouTube about collecting DVDs and Blu-rays and how my collection has evolved. And during this time frame, I've seen the rise in streaming and how this has now become the most accessible and mainstream way of consuming content, and if all you need is a stable internet connection, a subscription, and a screen, why does anybody bother looking at DVDs or Blu-rays if they're such an archaic method of consuming entertainment? Yes, I'll admit it's much easier to log on to a streaming service of your choice than struggle with hoarding movies and maintaining a vast collection. So, if it's much easier to stream stuff, how come people are still collecting physical media in 2024 and possibly beyond? In this video, I thought it'd be fun to discuss my collecting habits, something I often receive questions about, go through my reasons for collecting DVDs and Blu-rays despite there being a massive catalogue of streaming content available online. Plus, another question I often receive: where do you purchase your physical media from? It is surprising, but there are people out there who are actually looking to get into the collecting hobby, which is great to hear, and if I can help anybody with some suggestions for a starting point, I would be more than happy to do so. Right away, let's begin by saying there is nothing wrong with streaming or collecting physical media. Personally, I do both. I think it's a healthy balance considering how many shows nowadays are exclusive to streaming services. Like Severance on Apple TV, for example. I recently rewatched this show, one that I would highly recommend, and please, for the love of God, Apple, you need to release this show on Blu-ray. But some titles begin as streaming exclusives until more money is needed, and so a bunch of specialty physical media releases are forced onto the market at inflated prices. Here's looking at you, Disney. On a more serious note, the main reason I still collect physical media is because I find it much cheaper than having multiple subscriptions all at once. I don't have time to watch loads of stuff, oversaturation of entertainment is a growing concern, and I'm certain people grow tired of googling where they can watch something, not knowing which service carries the film or show of your choosing, not to mention how much time is wasted mindlessly scrolling through a streaming site where there's simply too much choice. At least if you own something physically, it's yours to keep, and you knowingly bought it because you wanted to watch that title. Bear in mind, you're only paying a streaming service for access to their library of entertainment, giving you the option to only watch what they are offering, and it's very common that titles will randomly disappear without much notice, and just because you spend your hard-earned money on that service, it doesn't mean you've actually bought anything tangible. The same can be said for buying an individual title from a streaming service like Amazon, for example, where it's then added to your personal library and you think you own it, but you don't. All you've done is bought the rights to view that piece of media, and once the license expires with that streaming host, it'll be gone, and so will your money. Leading into my next point, this brings into question the value of ownership and why it's so important. And mainly in my eyes, this revolves around censorship, which is something I've mentioned a few times on the channel. Streaming services have the right to deliberately alter or remove content in its entirety for the sake of public image, and one of the most memorable examples comes from Disney's acquisition of 20th Century Fox. When The Simpsons was made available for streaming on Disney+, not only did they screw up the show's formatting at first, but the classic Michael Jackson episode from Season 3 was not included, and still isn't. Stark Raving Dad isn't really a harmful episode in my opinion, it doesn't contain anything offensive or sensitive, but it's not available to watch due to the allegations surrounding MJ himself, therefore book-burning the episode, which denies all association with him. And there's plenty of other shows and movies out there with alterations or missing episodes. I guess we'll just have to wait for the launch of Disney Minus with all the offensive material they won't let us see. But looking at The Simpsons in particular, one of the main reasons I carried on collecting the DVD box sets was for the bonus features. There's a lot of care and appreciation for the show and how each season is carefully curated with as much extra content as possible. Anything like animatics or deleted scenes, they are not preserved by streaming services, but at the very least, I feel audio commentaries could be added to streaming by utilizing an alternative audio track. It'd be great to see this option available because I know people do appreciate learning more about their favorite shows, and hearing the creators commentate on their work is something I like because it gives me so much insight into the shows I care about. Take Futurama, for example. Every single episode has audio commentary which can be heard on the DVDs and Blu-rays, but sadly, this is not something the Hulu revival has. Even voice actor Billy West, who plays Fry amongst others on the show, he asked about whether or not the cast would be recording audio commentary for the new episodes. But it's all about how these extras can be hosted, if it's even possible to add extra features for streaming exclusives. And it's unfortunate that bonus features are overlooked on streaming, giving you more incentive to purchase your favorite movies or TV shows physically. When it comes to my own collection, I personally buy my DVDs and Blu-rays as an easier means of watching entertainment. I live in the middle of nowhere, therefore I am not blessed with the most perfect internet connection. I work a lot of the time and have YouTube as a hobby to talk about the things that I personally care about, which mostly revolves around movies and TV shows, and I'm often updating my want list whenever I come across a title that I am curious to check out. And when it comes to actually buying things, eBay is extremely cheap, where for less than £2 per title, or even bundle deals if you're lucky, you can grab a hell of a lot more for your money in my opinion. Sometimes I'll see a film I want in a second-hand store and buy it in person for less than £1, so obviously even cheaper, and there's fun in the hunt for a good deal. You've just got to be patient with that sort of thing. But with streaming services increasing their subscription prices, it infuriates me how they are deliberately now creating different priced tiers. This is all based around paying more for better video quality, or the option to pay extra and remove adverts, and all the major services you subscribe to seem to be doing this. Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Apple TV, Now TV, Paramount Plus, or if you're slightly mental, YouTube Premium. The cost of all these adds up. And even having only a couple of these services will set you back a hefty amount of money per month. And are you really sure you have time to watch enough content to justify the amount of money you are spending per month? With this in mind, I think there's an interesting argument over whether you are getting your money's worth with each subscription. If you only have time to watch a handful of movies per month, for example, and you can grab those titles physically for much cheaper than a single streaming subscription, that's where I feel we are perhaps giving streaming services too much credit for just being convenient. You can get so much more for your money by buying second-hand physical media, and once you're done with it, you can choose to either keep it or trade it in. And for newcomers to the collecting hobby looking for a starting point, there are two ways I look at collecting physical media. One is about preserving your favorite titles so you can watch them again and again. Once you own it, it's yours to keep, and that's really the best feeling, knowing that a service cannot take it away from you. And this is ideal for titles that you are already familiar with, and will likely result in a much smaller and selective collection over time that's more personal to you. The second way I look at collecting is picking up things you are interested in, where you'll either keep these titles if you enjoy them enough, or trade them in later down the line, keeping a regular rotation of things in your collection. You're still being selective, picking things up that you are interested in, but it'll be a fraction of the cost of what you would typically spend monthly on streaming. You won't be pressed for time if you sadly can't watch something that week, and there's no risk of that title that you are interested in suddenly being removed from the service. But most importantly in my eyes, with that in mind, you're making the effort to seek out new things, keeping your own personal interests engaged. It's a much better feeling than mindlessly scrolling through Netflix, obligated to watch what they have available because you're subscribed and want to get at least something for your money. That's just forcing yourself to watch things for the sake of it, which removes enjoyment. But streaming services are not going to slow down with producing content anytime soon. That's where many argue about the oversaturation, that there's too much content to catch up on, and once again, not enough time to watch everything. It's impossible. And so, as a collective, we therefore have to be smart with what we choose to watch. Looking at Disney Plus, for example, and how their flagship IPs like Marvel and Star Wars are now holding back on releasing new content. Too much will result in people just losing interest, along with the final product itself becoming lackluster and stale. I think the next few years will see crucial changes in the way entertainment is consumed, both via streaming and physical media, And we've been saying for years that DVDs especially are going to die a death, but this hasn't happened as of yet. Despite stores like in America famously, the store Best Buy getting rid of their physical media section, we're still getting new releases every single week regardless of whether certain areas or places are going to stock them. And yes, of course, streaming has far exceeded the statistics of physical media sales, but that doesn't mean both formats can't coexist. It wouldn't surprise me if there was a resurgence in physical media going forward, especially Blu-ray, which I feel people do kind of take for granted. Streaming titles are typically compressed, with a much lower bitrate, meaning the quality isn't actually all that great, but with Blu-ray you have more control over the quality with the brightness and contrast of the title you're watching, but perhaps that should be its own separate video later down the line. In the interest of defying censorship and retaining control over the content that you personally want to watch, rather than allowing streaming services to dictate what you should be watching, I feel there really is a strong place still for physical media, DVDs and Blu-rays. Therefore I say physical media should be here to stay, and if you are looking to start collecting, start with the stuff that you personally are interested in, and the stuff that you know you are going to go back to time and time again, things that have impacted your life, and that you would certainly love to stick around in your own personal collection. With all that said, that's going to do it for this discussion video looking at why I personally collect physical media, DVDs and Blu-rays in 2024. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to leave me a like down below, comment below and share your thoughts on this subject. As always, I love hearing your thoughts and opinions. And for more content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at DVD Review Studios.
Are you threatening me?